Hello and welcome to another edition of Addition. I'm your host, Addy Snowden. I'm a quantum life coach helping you get happier, healthier, and wealthier by jumping into the reality of your dreams. You can book with me at calendly.com/additionpod. There is a QR code on the live stream as well as show notes. I will have the link to my updated website where you can learn more about me. And before I get into today's amazing episode, go ahead and like and share this video, follow if you're not following, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. And we have an amazing episode today. This is the third and final episode of the Black Woman Boss series. We have Alexandria, from the founder of No Ceilings, on with us today. I'm so excited for you guys to get to know her and follow her because she has amazing content if you're a fan of this podcast. So how are you doing, Alexandria?
I'm doing good. How are you? First off, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited.
Of course. I'm so excited to have you. So why don't you introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Alexandria. I'm originally from Houston, Texas, currently living in New York City, and professionally been working in the tech industry for the last, oh my gosh, January will make 9 years. And within that, have had some amazing opportunities working in operations, a little account management, sales, and currently a senior program manager at Google.
Wow, that is amazing. So 9 years in the tech industry, a bunch of different positions. So how about like your current role? You're a senior program manager at Google. Tell us a bit about the journey that it took to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. So it all started from like a college career fair. Amazon was recruiting for an operations program. And I like to call this out when I say operations, like actually working in one of the Amazon fulfillment centers. So doing 4 days on, 3 days off, overseeing a team of like 30 to 40 associates and really getting those packages in the door and out the door. So did that for about a year and a half. And then that's when I looked to make the pivot into corporate, which I know we'll jump into later, some challenges and triumphs. And with making that pivot, moved into like a business development role. My goal was just to like get in. And so popped on over. And then after that, that's when I got my break into program management by like really working on improving processes for the customers. And I was at Amazon for about 4.5 years before making a move to Uber
Wow.
Eats specifically. It was April 2020, so pandemic was just kicking off, and Uber Eats was initially like the smaller business of Uber, but with the world shut down, nobody was driving and everybody was ordering online. So exponential growth in the product, the business, very scrappy environment. Did that for a while. And the market at that time was booming. So I was like, why not look for another opportunity? And then pivoted over to PayPal, and there was fintech, which was a totally different experience. I guess I didn't know like the levels of like approvals and how like long it took to roll things out when you're working in the financial tech industry. So learned and built up a different set of skills there. And then saw Google online on LinkedIn. Saw the role, was like, oh, I like this program management, improving customer experience. And yeah, refined my resume, worked on my LinkedIn profile to make sure it aligned. And then I cold applied, ended up getting through to the interview process.
Wow, that's such an amazing journey. And to go from, running operations at the warehouse level at Amazon to pivoting into tech, working at some of the biggest names, Uber, Google, etc. And also applying to Google and just saying, I want to work there and seeing a job on LinkedIn. Like all of those steps are really inspirational and uh, just great to hear. So now that you're at Google, you've achieved, major career goals. You're a senior program manager. What made you decide to pursue entrepreneurship in addition to a 9 to 5?
Yeah, I think a big thing to me is one grounded in like from my mom, always seeking out opportunities to help others. And I've always had a passion around like the career development process from like looking at internships, looking at resumes. This was like, I think I looked the other day, I created my LinkedIn in like 2011 before what it is today. And just like knowing that there's multiple avenues that people can take And it's really kind of up to you in a lot of ways to like kind of create where you want to go, where you want to pivot. And so always had that. And then throughout the years, I've just helped friends on resumes, helped them prepare for interviews. And I was like, you know what, why not turn this into a business where I can proactively like promote and say, hey, I want to help with these services rather than kind of waiting for friends to reach out. And then another big thing is around diversity in tech. Um, Very few African Americans throughout the entire industry. And so, really happy to see and to be able to play like a role in helping guide, like give career advice or help a resume and really kind of share the knowledge and tips I've learned from working at these companies and participating in interviews and giving that back and trying to help create that, open that door for other people as well.
Yes. Well, that's amazing. I love that, helping people, helping diversify tech as well as helping people with their career, is something you're already doing. And then you're thinking, hey, let me turn this into a business. That's always inspiring. So you told us a little bit about your business. Please tell us
Yeah.
more.
Oh, sure. Yeah, so the business has definitely evolved. It officially became in October 2022. As you know, this job market has been weird, wonky to say the least, since kind of that year. That's when a lot of like the mass layoffs started beginning. And so a lot of my focus initially was on mock interviews, but a lot of it is now pivoted to resumes. A lot of people are on the job market who haven't applied in a while. So they're like, what do I even put on here? How do I communicate impact? My particular role, job title doesn't match this role, but I've been doing this in my day to day. So a lot of the efforts now have been around like resume content updates and then some full resume revamps from scratch. So formatting it all has been like the bulk of the business. And I've helped over 100 plus clients since becoming official in October 2022. And that was so exciting. And it's definitely evolving, it's growing. And I like it because I'm still learning so much from the people that are actually in the job market. Like, what are you seeing? What's the feedback you're getting on your resumes? Because that's also helping me like keep abreast of what's happening like in the market in real time, since I'm not out there actively applying right now. So it's been super fulfilling, I think, to help people see like the great work they've been doing by helping them really comb out like, let's talk about your projects that you've done, and then like let's put that story so everyone can see it in your resume and in your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. It's like resume, the craft of a resume is so important now more than ever. And even with like AI tools, it doesn't the AI tools did not solve the problem of like making that resume perfect to get that perfect role. Like, can you share any like preconceived notions or tips for the audience, like just briefly on how they could be doing their resume differently?
Yes. Okay, one big tip, do not list the roles and responsibilities or like the task that you do in your day to day. So, for example, I'll read a resume that says complete weekly reports to sales leadership. And I'm like, what was the impact? Like, how did this matter to the business? Was it like created weekly reports that generated insights that helped land three customers that increased annual revenue by 3 million? Like, you want to tell the full story of what your great task like resulted in. There's a big thing around the star format, which I pride this to everyone. If you're looking, all my interviews have been of this is the situation, task, action, result. A lot of people leverage it just for their interview. I personally say think of your resume as your A and your R. What action did you drive? What result did it do? So it makes it very clear to the recruiter of the impact and the scale of the work that you've done, and it just makes it so much stronger when you see those type of examples versus a list of creative marketing strategy. What type of marketing strategy? What was the result or the KPI of it? Huge thing that I'm seeing, like that's my biggest tip is really take the time to think about projects that you've worked on, the specific actions that you did, and then the result that it drove.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that. I never thought about using star format for resumes. That's the first I've heard. That's an excellent tip, because, they say like, have be able to quantify your impact in your resume, and that's hard to conceptualize sometimes. So
Yeah.
imagine star and the AR specifically. Love that tip. Thank
Yeah.
you. So we before we get into like the challenges and the triumphs, because you've achieved, you're a successful entrepreneur, you're a at Google senior level, and you have a story, and we're going to get to that. But before we get to that, I'd love to hear what your definition of success is, and in which ways do you consider yourself successful?
Yeah, so it's definitely a moving target. Um, some days I'm like, "Oh my
Always.
gosh, I feel so successful," and then some days I'm like, "Am I doing enough?" I have those, like, internal questions, like, every day. But to me, success, it kinda varies on, like, what part. So, like, at work, if I'm working on a big project, like, did it land? Like, am I able to pull actual data to see that I, like, decrease contacts that advertisers need? Or did I like reduce sales escalations or like the needing of people to reach out? And then I think of my business where a lot of times, like if I get an email saying, thank you so much for your like conversation, like you just made me feel more confident, or now I feel like I can go and communicate things better and more concisely in an interview. Like those little moments, I now appreciate more than ever and see those as little victories of success. And then,
I
of
love
course, like, as you scale, you grow, you get to reach more people, you get like external opportunities. Like all of that kind of helps me feel successful because it's like kind of reinforcing that, okay, I am being helpful to someone and that
yeah.
other people see it. And that also just like really fills my cup as well.
That's amazing. I love that, because so many times, like, definitions of success are like me focused, as opposed whereas your definition is like, how am I helping others? How am I getting outside of myself? And we need more people like that in the world. So that's amazing. So
Oh,
yeah. um,
thanks.
so was there ever a time that you doubted yourself or wanted to give up in pursuing your goals? And how did you overcome that?
Yeah. So this specific question, it makes me think of college. So originally from Houston, Texas, played volleyball for 8 years, got a
Oh, me
college scholarship.
too.
Oh, I know. So excited. And then like went freshman year and I just completely like crap. I don't know if it was the
Mm,
freezing under pressure or making that transition from like high school to collegiate. And it was like mentally, I could not get myself like back to perform. And so as a result of that, I lost my scholarship. And I remember coming
wow.
back home and like I identify as volleyball. Like that is what I've
Yeah.
known. I'm used to waking up, go to practice, summers or off season. Like you get so conditioned in this process that you've
Yeah.
always done. I didn't know who Alexandria was. Like, did I have goals? Like what like it was this
Yeah.
school, like I don't know. And I remember coming back home. I worked retail for a bit because I was like, okay, I guess I'll do this. Oh my God, it's like work retail. And then I was like, okay, you don't have to know like long term, but something that you said you wanted to do was to get your degree.
Yeah.
And so after a year of like just working, trying to figure things out, I slowly started taking classes while working part time and
Wow.
continued doing that. I did some volunteering at like our health museum, and I did like birthday parties because I was like, okay, this is a little side hustle, and I was like walking through the body. And then after doing that, because I was going to school for PR, um, public relations, and then I ended up getting offered a marketing internship
Mm,
and still volunteer, but it gave me my first step of like, okay, this is what somewhat of a real job feels like. Cause I was like waking up, I was going in, being business casual, doing my classes. I was like, okay, I like communicating. I like working with people. I really love like creating a story for a brand. And like, it was just like kind of these pieces were slowly coming together. And I finally felt like, okay, I'm figuring out who I am again. But I remember feeling embarrassed, like, okay, my story has always been like, oh, she plays volleyball, she does this. But it's like, okay, she played volleyball, she took a break, she's back in school part time, and she's working, but she's figuring it out and being okay with this. And honestly, it was over the last few years where I haven't become comfortable talking about this out
yeah.
loud. But I've learned like it was a part of my story
Yeah.
and I like learned to love it, accept it, and realize things may shift and completely go out from like what you initially saw for yourself and know or think you know like that's what you are.
Yeah.
And I think of those moments from time and again. I was like, you were able to figure it out. If something happens, you'll be able to figure it out again. Also, a huge support to my family who was there along the way. Huge
Mhm.
blessing to have them and prayer. But yeah, it was definitely like a hard time of like recalibrating and like
Yeah.
figuring out who am I?
Yeah. No, for sure. I'm so glad that you shared that story because I'm sure people meet you now and are like, "Oh, everything must have worked out for you. Like that's why you have a business. That's why you work at Google. You've never had problems or challenges." And I'm just but it's hard to tell this story because it's like vulnerable. Like I can relate so much. Like I played volleyball. I had to take 3 gap years between high school and college. I won't get into the details as to why, but I definitely felt like my my life was
Oh,
over, and
yeah.
it's like turns out things work out. I can What was it like when you came home and had to tell your family that you lost your scholarship?
Oh my gosh. Literally felt so much embarrassment
Yeah.
because I was like, I wasn't like a straight A student, but I'd always done pretty well. And like I usually met the goals and expectations that I set for myself and then the ones my family also saw for me.
Mhm.
And I remember just being greeted with so much like love and be like, it's okay. We will
Yeah.
figure this out. But personally in myself, I was like, I'm a failure. Cause I was like, and then especially makes it difficult when you see everyone around you still like, okay, sophomore years here, they're
Mhm.
going
Yep.
back to school, and you're like, I'm not. And so that
Yeah.
also played a huge role in the psyche of it because like life is still happening and you can't just like you can't shrink back, but I was still like out enough to see my friends progressing. But that also
Yeah.
kind of played a motivator in some ways.
Yes.
And so that was also like super helpful, but scary at the same time, being like, wow, life is not stopping because this part is stopped.
Yeah.
And yeah,
No, that's amazing. It's so hard. And it's like those friends or those peers that we look to left and right, like there's always going to be someone way further ahead and someone who's further
absolutely.
behind at no matter what stage at life. But there's something about that college and immediate post-college period where it hits different.
Yes.
Because they people put so much pressure on that period of life,
I gotta
like
figure out what I want. Like, it's like,
exactly.
"Wait, what?"
Me
Looking back,
too.
but in it, you're like, "No, I need to figure this out." And now, like,
Yeah.
yourself, like, that's 4 years of so much life that's still, like, out there. But in the time when it was happening, I was like, "This is like, I'm it. This is it. I've peaked."
Yeah. No, and it's so glad to see that that was not the case. And if you're listening right now, going through you're in between school and work, or you didn't make it to college on time, like just know it's never too late. You can always
Yeah,
turn your life around and graduate and get that job that you want if
absolutely.
that's what you want.
Absolutely.
So next question is what were some of the biggest challenges you faced pursuing your goals and how did you navigate them?
Yeah, I would say one of the big parts was being in the operations at Amazon and trying to make that pivot into corporate. There's a little bit of a stigma, once you're in operations or any type of role, a lot of times people can try to like typecast you and keep you in that bubble because one, they may not truly understand what's happening on the other side. Two, they may not care enough to try to understand. And then three, you may feel like yourself that you're not worthy of making this pivot.
Mhm.
So when you have those like internal and external things, makes it a bit more difficult. But I remember trying to make the pivot and people were like, I don't understand what you do. And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm process improvement. I'm making these changes. They're like, well, what does that mean in context to this role? And this is
Mhm.
before I knew about crafting like one, the internal mobility process. I assume like once you're in, it should be
Yeah.
easier to navigate.
Whew.
Not the case. Not the case. But I
Yeah.
went in with that. I'm already in here. I passed the hiring bar. They're gonna like take me because I'm here. They'd rather
Yeah.
um, so going in with that, not really understanding transferable skills, not understanding how your resume needs to be crafted to tell a story, of people who have never walked in your shoes or been at that company that you've been in. Did not know any of that. And so I was getting no after no after no. I started looking externally because I was like, this isn't going to happen. And I remember like one of the, it was like an HR business partner that I worked with in operations. She was like, you should start doing coffee chats. And I was like,
Mm.
what's a coffee chat? She's like, you just go and meet. I said, I don't drink coffee. She was like, you just go and meet and you talk to people. And this will be a time for you to ask about their roles, ask about their interview process, and share more about you. And she was like, they ask you questions about what you do, take note of that and think about, okay, you gave them a different response for them to actually understand it. Now go back and make that response in your resume because that's how you need to think of like, you won't have the time to give them like a debrief. They're going to look at your resume and that's going to be it. So you need to figure out how to connect those dots between operations, our program management, our sales and strategy, whatever it is, to create that story for them to understand.
Wow.
And it was so, I was like, that 6 to 7 months of like applying coffee chats, assessing resumes really set up a lot of the foundation of the skills that I use now throughout all of my interviews and the guidance that I've given to other people.
Right, because that's amazing. Like if you were able to coffee chat your way from operations in the warehouse to, you know, big tech, big tech corporate
Yeah,
job, like you can help anyone get from, point A to point B.
yeah,
So I'm curious, like, what coffee chat was it that turned into a job? Like, because I've heard the coffee chats, and I think,
yeah.
so I want to hear your coffee chat success
Oh
story.
my gosh, absolutely. So this was after probably 10 other ones that I used as learnings to get to this final one. It was a hiring manager. Oh my gosh, she was amazing. She's still there now. And she was like, why do you think you'd be good in this role? She was like, you come from operations. Like this role is like business development. Like why? And I remember sitting there, I was like, okay, the role that I was looking into was basically about like helping customers improve their experience and make their lives easier. High level. My job in operations was to be an advocate for my team and remove blockers and barriers to help them achieve their day-to-day goals. And I was like, this is my connection. And I was like, the difference is like I'm doing this in my day to day, but like when it comes to collaborating, I'm working with different team members that work on my particular shift, ones that work after. I'm looking at data analysis to kind of see where am I seeing like spikes in performance, lower performance. I'm looking at where the breakdown is from like is it the beginning of their process to end. Now, when I think of an actual customer, it's the sign up process, it's onboarding, it's checkout and then slowly connecting those. And I remember her being like, this was such a great conversation. And I was like, okay, God, hopefully this was the one. And then she's like, I want you to meet with one other person. We had a similar talk and I ended up getting offered that role. And she was like, thank you. That coffee chat was super helpful to understand like what do you do and how I could see you being an impact on my team.
Wow, such a great story to hear. And like, do you feel like the way where the market is now, do you feel like that is still possible for people, or do you feel like that was a moment in time? Because I really want to encourage people to take
Yeah.
your advice.
Yeah. So I definitely think it's still possible. I think you have to be more intentional now than ever before. So things that I've learned since then, if you're looking to apply to a role, like before I got to Google, I have cold applied, but before I started like my interview process, I reached out to other people at Google with that job title. And I
Hmm.
said, hey, we'll love to understand what your day to day is like, just the job title. Also, look for people that are at the similar like experience level as you. Do not
Hmm.
reach out to a VP if you're looking into an entry level role. One, because your processes are going to be different. They may not even remember their interview process. So you want to find people that are close in experience and also people that are with the job title. And then I send over my 3 questions that I want to ask them in my outreach email on LinkedIn. So they know exactly what I'm looking to discuss. I'm making the most out of their time, most out of my time, and we get straight into the point. I think a lot of people disregard in-mails because it's like, "Hey, would love to connect."
Yeah,
About what?
right.
What do you wanna learn?
Exactly.
What are some
You gotta
questions?
add some meat to it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that. So definitely still reach out for coffee chats, but at your peer level, to people with similar experience, and be very clear about the things that you want to find out in this chat.
yeah, and I also recommend that whenever you are reaching out to somebody, make sure that your LinkedIn is ready for them to view it.
Yeah.
Because typically when people do reach out to me, I go look at their LinkedIn to kind of just like get an overview to give myself some background. You want to make sure that is ready to be hitting on all cylinders. So that can also say, oh, wow, if there is a role that they may know of, that could be the opportunity for them to say, I saw your LinkedIn profile. This aligns with the role that I know someone. That could be your way in. So when you're reaching out, you want to make sure that that content is ready at all times. Because I think the last data point I read was that 87% of recruiters also look at your LinkedIn profile as a part of vetting.
Yeah.
They're even asking for your LinkedIn URL in applications.
Yes.
Take it serious, spend time there. I leverage the same content from the resume to LinkedIn profile. Um, but just make sure that all that is geared up because that's all a part of your package when you're reaching out to people.
100%. It's like LinkedIn is your portfolio. Like I
Yeah.
see it as a must have, and every section should be filled out. So I'm glad that you're reiterating that.
Yes.
Um, okay, so now we talked about your doubts and challenges. What are some pivotal moments or decisions that shaped your path for the better or for the worse?
Yeah, I think one of the tough decisions was deciding to leave Amazon. That was the first employer I'd ever worked for. I gotten used to the culture. I was successful there, and it was about 4.5 years, and I was like, "Okay, should I leave? Do people leave Amazon?" All my friends were still there, like, I met my husband there. We started in the same, like,
Oh,
operations
great.
program, and so it felt like home in a lot of ways. But if I wouldn't have made that move, I don't think I would have learned, like, the level of skills I've gotten by being at these other companies. Like,
Hmm.
Uber was more like a startup feel, like, very agile, scrappy, getting things out the door, where I was so used to a lot of structure that really pushed me out of my comfort zone to, like, just jump in and, like, just, like, land things 60, 70%, we'll fix it along the way. I'm very type A, so I like to have things in order as much as possible, but making that pivot opened my eyes up to an entire new world. I got to work on my favorite project of my entire career. So it was in April 2020 with George Floyd, and it was about showcasing Black-owned restaurants in the Uber Eats app. I'd only been there for like maybe a month and a half. And the manager was like, "Who wants to do this?" And I was like, "Absolutely." And I was like, "I
Wow.
don't even know Uber. I don't know any of these people." But I was like, "That's something that I want to be a part of."
Yeah.
And that type of like project, it was Uber is also a smaller company. So I really got to get my hands dirty in a lot of different things. And so making that jump was terrifying, but that was probably one of the best things I could have done was making that leap. And I worked with some great people at Uber and just like learned so much about me, how other companies operate, and that everyone needs to operate the same to see success.
Yeah. No, that's an amazing story, and like obviously that was the best decision for you to make because it got you where you are today and got that. I mean, to be the person that owns supporting Black businesses on Uber Eats is amazing. Like that's so cool. I'm
Uh,
sure I used that feature at one point. But I'm so curious, like if you met your husband at Amazon, you said you were successful there, which is just a huge statement because so many
yeah,
people think that they're just keeping above water. Um, what prompted you to actually just make that move to Uber? Like what was it that said like I'm good, I'm willing to let go of like my connections, my Amazon family, for lack of better words,
yeah.
and try something new?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. So before New York City, lived in Seattle for about two and a
Mhm.
half years, Amazon HQ. Personally, I was ready. We were ready to leave for a city, that fit us a little bit more
Mhm.
diversity. And so with knowing that was a personal thing we wanted to do, I applied for a role in New York. It was an account manager role actually for like a brand new business. And this is a thing that I tell people when I talk to is that some of your moves to companies and roles or locations may shift for personal and may be for professional. And that is okay. But that is what prompted the move. When we were like, hey, I want to move to New York. My current role was not allowing it. So
Yeah.
I started applying. I got a position and I was in it for maybe like 9 or 10 months. And I was like, okay, I know sales is not where I want to be. I'm loving the city, personal life, loving it. But this isn't the position that I want. And so that also played a role in like, okay, I'm doing well, I'm meeting my goals, but is this where my trajectory of where I want to go is next?
Yeah. No,
No.
that's right. Oh, that's so cool. So you were Amazon HQ in Seattle, transferred to New York through a sales position with
Yeah.
Amazon,
Yeah.
and then found a better position for you at
Move
Uber in New
yeah.
York.
Move back to
Wow.
program management, which is
Yeah.
my favorite area, but there weren't a lot of PGM roles for Amazon in New York. So I was like, this is like a family decision
Hmm.
and you got to protect your mental health at all. And we're like, let's do it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I love that you talk about like some career decisions are personal versus work decisions. And I think people need to hear that more. Like,
Yeah.
I think right now, especially in the market, it's like, the job comes first. And it's like, if the job's in Seattle, we're in Seattle. And, as
Yeah.
opposed to thinking about what's best for you and your family. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so
And it's
that's so.
tough and it
Mhm.
shifts, I think because we met in operations in Baltimore, lived there for a bit, and then we went to a warehouse in Charlotte, North Carolina. Then we went to a warehouse in Dallas, and then ended up making it to corporate in Seattle. And so at that time, we were like, let's just go, let's just pop around. But then at one point, we were like, okay, we want to feel like a little bit more at home. He's from New Jersey, and it's like, it's New York, like, it's New York. But yes, I tell people even when you think of like promotions and all of, like the job ladders, everything doesn't need to shoot up. If you need to kind of pivot sometimes because like you said, this is what's best for you and your family, that should be a very important part of the decision making process. And I know that's like a
Totally.
personal decision for every single person. And so people ask me, I'm like, oh, look, I wanted to move to New York. So I loved being a program manager. Like that role at Amazon and my phenomenal manager like taught me the basics of how to operate. But I was like, this is going to be the next move. So
Yeah.
definitely be open to that. I always tell people if you can move career wise, Seattle was probably one of the best things I've done because it's HQ. You get a lot of FaceTime, all of that. And I was like, okay, after 2.5 years though,
Yeah, no, for
we're
sure.
good.
It's enough time, It's like I feel like I like that you also jumped around. It's like people need to normalize like changing jobs
Yeah,
every couple years. Like
do
so
it. Do it. Whether it's personal, money motivated, like I always tell people, ask yourself kind of what's top of mind for you. Like when I graduated college from Houston, University of Houston, my goal was to get to DC.
Mhm.
Whatever job was going to get me there. Like that was my focus was location. Then I had some
Yeah.
friends where like, this is my dream company. I gotta be here.
Mhm.
So ask yourself kind of like, what are your motivators? And be honest with yourself. You don't have to say it's because this is your dream job. Like my Amazon got me to Baltimore, which was 45 minutes away from
Mhm.
DC.
Yeah.
But like that was my goal. So just constantly ask yourself, like, where do I want to be location wise, job wise, level wise, and just kind of work backwards from there.
Yeah. I love that. I want to like you're welcome back on this podcast anytime because
Oh
we
my
are
God, I would love to.
in
No, you're
sync.
amazing.
So next would be what's the biggest lesson you've learned throughout your journey to success?
I would say one of the biggest things, and I still struggle with this today, is being okay with saying, I don't know and I need help. It
Mm,
is, like being a woman in tech, being a Black woman in tech. I was like, I don't want to be seen as weak or not knowledgeable or shouldn't be here. So let me try to figure out everything by myself.
mhm.
Please, if you're listening, do not go this route. I wasted so much time doing this because I wanted to be perceived a certain way. I was not being efficient. Something that I could have pinged somebody that would have been like a 3 minutes would take me hours. But
Mhm.
I just felt that I needed to like have this perception of, oh, you give it to Alexandria, she's good. She won't ask any questions. She goes figures it out by
Mhm.
herself. Do not, if you can. And I know it's hard. Like I said, I still struggle with this today, but
Mhm.
it's something empowering about being like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, and just letting someone guide because a lot of times you can tell when people are trying to like BS you in some ways and they don't
Mhm.
know. And I'm like, you don't know because I don't even know what's happening, but I don't even think what you're saying is right
Mhm.
either. And
Yeah.
so, biggest lesson and something that still find challenging, the power of saying I don't know and reaching out for help.
Yeah. And the love those 2 together, saying we don't know when we don't know it, and then promptly asking for help after. And I
Uh,
can this is really I can relate to you saying that this is hard and it's a struggle. And I'm curious, especially because you're like in the career consulting field. What do you remember? Am I misremembering this? But was there a time where we were told to just Google it and figure
yeah,
everything's out on our own? And that's why
yeah,
we're like this? Because I was kind of beating, like, and the narrative has changed now. And now it's like, soft life, like, be human, ask
yeah,
for help. But I was beating myself up like about, that resistance to asking for help. But we were told to do that at one point. So
yeah. Like you'll figure out,
yeah,
go Google it. And even now, like the
yeah,
math on where I'm like, I'll just Google it. And then you realize you look up something even internally, and you're like, there's 20 different resources for this. Like
yeah,
Google, like I don't know
right.
which one is right, which one's current. But yeah, maybe it is like that kind of you'll figure it out. You'll be good.
Hmm.
No worries, no worries. And I don't think anyone meant anything like, bad about it maybe growing up, but a lot of that maybe still is instilled. And I'm like,
Yeah,
well, I figured it out then. I can figure it out
yeah,
now. But I'm like, is that most efficient? Also,
and
I've learned when you ask
yeah,
for help, people give you context that a document could have never given you.
right. Yes. No, I love that. So think we're changing the narrative now. It's like, ask for help now.
Yes.
Don't assume you have to figure everything out on yourself. You're by
Yes.
yourself. So now we're going to move on to inspiration. So, who or what were some of your biggest inspirations along the way? Mentors, books, podcasts, anything?
Yes. Okay, so definitely my mom is my inspiration.
Oh,
Her birthday was actually on Tuesday, and so she's a program lead. So, like, I'm program manager, program lead, and I just remember, like, when we were kids, I would go to the office with her. She works in downtown Houston. She's a program lead for community relations, and I just remember being like, "Oh my gosh, they have like free soda here," and like seeing her like interact with her coworkers and like just how she navigated and how everyone always just had these kind things to say about her and my organization, my structure, a lot of that came from, like, me seeing her do that, like, as a kid. And so now, like, when I have wins at work or she has things, we, like, connect and we talk about it, and it's just so oh my gosh, I love her to death. I call her Mother Teresa. But she is definitely my inspiration. If you're watching, mommy, love you. Um, she's the best, definitely inspiration. And then for podcasts, I don't know if you heard of The Skim.
oh,
It's
the newsletter that,
yes, yes. They do
yeah.
a weekly podcast as well,
Mm,
which basically is like bringing in women leaders across various industries. They could be actresses, authors, tech companies. I've watched some with Kerry Washington, Gabrielle Union, Bazoma St. John, and like they really kind of give you like their experience from navigating some of those writers' rooms where you're the actress, but now you're kind of shifting to being a director and playing that new role to like navigating like corporate rooms. Because Alma St. John was at Apple, then she went to Uber, and like just
yeah,
hearing their
love her.
stories of how they navigated these situations in like these rooms that are still like predominantly men today is just super inspiring. So that is something I definitely give a listen to, like, on my runs, just to kinda hear about that, and I just, like, literally self-help books is kind of my go-to.
Mhm. Yes, this is a
Um
safe space for
Yeah,
self-help books. Feel free to
they're
rattle them off.
so
Yeah.
good, Simon Sinek has some great books,
Yeah.
that I've read. One, it was like the Startup of You. It was by one of
Yeah.
the founders of LinkedIn and, like, treating
Mm.
yourself like a startup and, like, knowing what your value prop is. I just okay, self-help books, people talk about them like, y'all, they're amazing. But those
Yeah,
are
they're
some of the
amazing.
things I can apply this to, like, my day-to-day. And it's just been super helpful, but those are some of the things I, like, keep in rotation, on my podcast or on my, like, AirPods and phone like that.
Yeah, no, that's so great. I One thing I love about Simon Sinek is his book, you can almost get the whole point just from the title.
Right?
Like he has some excellent titles and like Start with Why or Leaders Eat Last. And it's like we
Right?
get it, you know, like
Like,
that's
start with
powerful.
why. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh. Especially when I think about work, when I get, like, lost in all the noise sometimes, I'm like, "Wait, what's the why?" And it,
Yeah.
like, really just, like, hones things back in so quickly. But yeah, team self-help. Maybe one day I'll jump into another genre. I just need a good one to, like, get me there.
Right. Yeah. No, exactly. And I had a question about your mom. I think I missed it. What was her career that you were watching her?
Yeah, so my mom, another phenomenal story. She started off as an assistant, like, working, and then she
Mhm.
didn't finish her degree immediately, so was an assistant for maybe, like, 5 to 7, maybe 10 years? I don't know the exact
Mhm.
numbers, but a lot of years, but during that time, she went to school online at the University of Phoenix to get her bachelor's degree, and
Amazing.
then she moved into, like, program management, but always in the community relations space, like,
Oh,
going in, building relationships with the community, with the city of Houston, um, and she's always worked, like, in the energy sector. So, energy is, like, always, like,
yeah.
"How can we help? How do we build
Mhm.
this?" But yeah, so I remember just, like, making the drive with her downtown. She still works downtown, um, and just, like, seeing her. She's like, "Okay, I need to go work on a Sunday or a Saturday and knock a few things out." And I was like, "Okay, I'll just come." And I was like, play in the background. She would, like, give me a computer to, like, draw things at or something. And I remember, working at Amazon, they actually had a bring your parents to work day.
Oh.
And, oh my gosh, I was just like, "This feels so full circle." Because I remember being the little kid, and now I'm getting to bring my parents to work and kinda seeing, like, what's my day to day.
Mhm.
Just so oh, it's made my heart so happy.
No, I love that. They need to do that more, honestly, because
Yes, my parents
yeah.
come. They always come from wherever, to,
Yeah.
like, participate in that. Even I bring them to the office now, just to kind of see, like, "Okay, this is where I go to work every day." And so I love sharing these moments and memories with them.
Yeah. No, that's great. Makes very clear now why your mom's such an inspiration. That's her path is inspiring
Yeah.
herself. So what advice would you give to others who aspire to similar success as yours? Like you've shared a
Yeah.
lot of advice along the way, so but anything that you'd want to double click on or didn't get the chance to mention.
Yeah, I would just say don't get stuck in the comparison game. Success looks different for everyone, and there is no one right path to success. And I know that's easier said than done. Like, I also can get stuck in it too. But I've learned that you've been given a unique set of skills that
Mhm.
no one else has. But the challenge is on you to be able to communicate that effectively to people. And like I said, it takes time, it takes revision, but like really talking to yourself to see what you enjoy and like just saying, like, okay, this is my particular lane. And if that lane pivots or goes another direction, totally fine. But that's something I really want to just, I know with the LinkedIn and the Instagrams and social media, there is so much like great information around, but it can make you think that everyone kind of had this straight dotted line or straight line to get to something, where a lot of people had turns, zigzag, they went up, they went down, like, and that's not going to be reflected. And so it's okay if you're still figuring it out. Like, even when I mentor students, I was like, you don't need to figure this all out right now. But
Yeah.
what you do want to do is kind of keep a tally of what do you enjoy? What do you want to grow in? And start looking at things that way rather than saying, okay, I know exactly what career I want to be in. That's big and that's daunting, it can be overwhelming.
Hmm.
So just take time, talk to yourself, figure out what you enjoy, what you like, And it is okay if it does not look like something that you've seen other people do. Just continue your path and stay consistent.
Yes, I love that. That saying, comparison is the thief of joy,
Yeah,
always
yes.
sticks out to me. Um, so all right. What are your goals? We're looking ahead now. So what are your goals
Yeah.
for the future and what impact do you hope to make either at work or with your business or both?
Yeah, so I would definitely say for business, like a goal for like I'm thinking like just 2025 is definitely try to get more like platforms like this that I have the opportunity to speak at or speaking engagements. Because I think if you can like reach more people at one time, that can be super helpful because everyone may not get on LinkedIn. Everyone may not like know where to tune in or what
Hmm.
networks or podcasts go to. So like this year I had a great opportunity to speak like at the Female Quotient, which is an organization that's really
Amazing.
looking to like, even out playing field with us and men for a panel around advocating for yourself. And then at another conference, Baddies in Tech, where I was on a panel for
It's
transferable skills.
amazing.
And so during those engagements, I get to meet people after, I get to connect with them on LinkedIn. They reach out and follow up. And it's like, this is where we start getting these important conversations going. And so just any opportunities that kind of jump like that, super excited to engage in those. And then work wise, continue looking to be challenged. I think I feel good when I don't know exactly what my next day is going to look like. Once those days all start looking the same, then it's like,
Hmm.
okay,
Yeah.
something something right here isn't right. And so right now, every day is looking very different. Every week, every hour, some days. So I'm hoping to keep that, and then also keeping having great leaders that from my manager, director, to continue like advocating for like what I'm looking for to grow in. Being an active part of our ERG, our employee resource group, I'm a part of that for the New York chapter, specifically on career development. So leaning into that more because I think getting into companies is one part, but like, what do we do to like thrive and grow
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
stay is like the
Yeah.
next part. And so, super excited for like kind of all these things to kind of see how they pan out.
Yes, that's amazing. I love that you're going to continue speaking because I'm it's been so great, having this conversation with you
Yeah,
today. Like I can tell
same.
you're an excellent speaker and always excited to see more like Black women voices, especially in like the tech spaces.
Yeah,
And also wanting to get new challenges. So that's always a great goal to aspire to, and the work that you're doing for your ERG and the helping people stay and
yeah.
thrive is it really 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 important work. So
Yeah.
thank
Oh,
you for that.
thanks.
So I have second to last question.
Yeah.
So what excites you the most about you, your career, and or your business's future?
Yeah. I think what most excites me about my career is that I've been in so many different types of roles from like business development, managing accounts, program management, and I'm excited to one day see like, I don't know, director or VP level role that allows me to kind of utilize those skills more and like develop strategies and kind of show the direction that I think we should go. So I'm excited to like build those strengths now and like work with
Hmm.
senior levels who I'm like, oh wait, I really like how the way they looked at that problem. So a lot of like just growth and a lot of skills in the areas where I want to develop. And then business wise, like I said, I think it's a big thing of like doing the external engagements, but another part is like reaching as many people as I can through LinkedIn, through the engagements, and kind of building out also like a new strategy in 2025 for no ceilings. Like I've gotten another year of data of like the type of questions a lot of my clients have, a lot of the services that are taking like primary. So really leaning into that and maybe saying, okay, I'm offering a more broader amount of services. Maybe it should be something that should be more simplified now that I have like a couple of years under my belt.
Yeah. That's
Uh,
amazing. Exciting, exciting stuff. So, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. I can't
yes.
wait till, the listeners get to hear, the podcast version, the video version, all of
Yes.
that. Um, thanks to everyone for joining live.
Thanks, everyone.
So, yeah, so at the end of every episode, I have a question, which is, what am I geeked out about this week? And so I've been asking my guests for the Black Woman Boss series, what are you geeked out about this week? So this can be anything that that doesn't have to be work related, but it's just something that
Yeah.
brought you joy, something you're excited about, something you're geeking out on.
Yes. Okay. So super excited. I actually got featured in a Business Insider
Oh
article,
my
and
God,
it just
yes.
came out on Monday.
Yes, amazing. Oh
um,
my God.
I know. I was very, very, very excited. A reporter had like reached out through LinkedIn and was like, "Hey, I see a lot of the career and like resume strategies that you provide. Would love to do an article."
Oh my God.
So yeah, that came out on Monday, and is like the reactions and like the feedback from like the friends, my family has just been like super just amazing. So I'm super geeked out on that because I read Business Insider all the time. So
Yes.
like my picture and like, oh, Alexandria Sauls recommends these tips. I'm like on cloud nine. So I'm super geeked out about that, and it probably will be for the next month.
Yes, that's huge. Well, I'm gonna link the article in the show notes as
Oh
usual, but
yes.
since I'm don't pay for Business Insider, you got to give us the free summary as to what the
Oh my gosh,
article is
yes.
about.
And there's like an AOL link that I've been sharing because they also picked up the article. So I'll
Okay.
send you that one. So it won't be
Thank
hopefully it won't be
you.
behind the paywall.
Thank you. No, that's a huge congrats. Like amazing.
Thanks.
It's so great. It's like I feel like everyone that's been on this series is like just on the brink about to go up. So I wish you all the success, prosperity,
Thank
and thank you
you.
again so much for coming on. Any final words, anything you want to plug, anything you want to say to the audience? This is the time.
Uh, I know it's a crazy time in the job market, and I would just say don't give up. Like the right role, the right opportunity will be there. And just continue, like I said, looking at your content and like knowing what narrative and how you want to craft your story, and really kind of just hone in on that as you go through this job market.
Yay. Thank you for those words of inspirations. I know you've helped so many people just by coming on. So thanks again.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
that's the end of our show today. I will see you guys next week. Have a good one.